Buenos dias. Welcome back to the workshop. A bit of a change of layout today, trying to make space for welding and cutting while wiring over there, bits of plumbing, etc. Lots to do today. I've got about 3 hours. I'm going to start by working on this valance, cutting it up and making the brackets for the radiator so we can get some paint on that before it goes back in. While that paint's drying, I'm going to try and get the wiring finished up because the heat shrink's arrived, so I can get the high voltage wiring finished up. And I've got some bits to show you that have been 3D printed, or at least one bit I think I remembered that's been 3D printed to cover up the nasty metal edges of that hole between the battery box and the high voltage junction box. Time to get moving. Just tack this piece in, and it's great for height, could go a little bit higher, but it's bad for depth. Unless I put some big standoffs on, which I don't really want to do, the hoses will foul on the battery box there. So, if we can, want to come, then we're getting into fouling issues, but I want to come out a little bit. Actually, maybe, do you know what, with standoffs, it might be all right, except all the holes are going to be in exactly the wrong place then. What if we can do something about that? I seem to have developed a really dodgy dirt moustache. That's slang for something? Anyway, quick bit of eBay. And I've got some 20mm standoffs, rubber standoffs, threaded bar on each side, which will, with a little bit of rounding out, drop straight into the piece we put in there. So what we can do is we can weld that out now, clean my face, and mark up for the bottom mounts for the radiator too. Here's the plan then. You can see that this cheap radiator is very easily damaged. I mean, it doesn't really matter, it'll be fine, and it was so cheap. If I really want to be posh, I'll replace it at some point, maybe with a nicer one, hopefully with the same fittings. I'm assuming these, I can't remember exactly what this is meant to fit, but I'm assuming these fittings are pretty standard off something, so I'll be able to get a nicer quality replacement. Anyway, I'm going to go with another piece of this angle. Honestly, it's all I could get at short notice, and I didn't have anything kind of appropriately sized for this job, and I want to get it done. So I'm going to go for another piece of this angle to line up with the holes at the bottom, trim it down, and then they use this 1mm, 12mm box section, 1mm walls to come off the back of here, which give me the same offset as the top bar, so that it levels up with the bottom fittings once you put the standoffs on. I might do a little bit of trimming around here. We obviously don't, this bit's just kind of redundant now, so we could actually come around there and down here and trim that back, grind some of this lip off. Oh, actually we don't need to grind this because this is going on the back. And likewise on the other side we could trim that back a little bit further, albeit I have to say both sides look reasonably neat at the moment, so I'm not too fussed about that, certainly not this time around. So maybe not do this today because I'd like to have all the standoffs in and make sure all the measurements are perfect, well, as perfect as they ever are with me. Make sure the measurements are functional before I weld it all together. And we will get this bit cleaned up and get this bit cut down to roughly the right lengths, and maybe get this and this tacked together. And then when the standoffs arrive, it's just a question of bolting it all together and welding it up so it can go on. Got it all laid out for measuring up, and actually I might weld it. I can get it all lined up quite nicely, top and bottom. I've cut this piece of angled box. You can see I can get it to line up nicely with the angle on the bottom, which I think will look quite smart, in as much as any of this fairly messy thing looks smart. But yeah, just tie it in there, tie it in down the bottom, and trim things up, and that'll do. Right, that's primered and ready to go. We can move on to getting a little bit of wiring done before I have to head off. Don't need a gimbal there. I mean, I probably ought to use it more, but it doesn't need to be there. 3D printed part in. Needs a little bit of trimming up. But this is our gland for our high voltage cables which come out of the battery box. As you can see, they fit nicely up and down. Should fit even with a couple of them coming out of there. There's a 3D printed nut to go on the end. I'm probably going to reprint this. It's a little bit tight because I had some warping issues, so I'll print a new one of those and trim this one up just so it's nice and smooth. But we can get our phase cables in now that we've got some heat shrink. This I noticed it fell in here earlier. This looks far too big, far too big, and yet I have tested it. It shrinks so much. Where did my test piece go? Here you go. It shrinks so much, and it's the gluey stuff that it shrinks around that perfectly. So actually we could have done it before and slip it over the top. So I'll trim those down to length, get the crimpers out and get our phase cables on. Then we can get our inverter buttoned up and maybe think about using some of these offcuts to run our cables from our junction box into the inverter. Right, that'll have to wrap it up for today because I'm on dad duties in 1 hour. So I need to get some clean clothes on and have a wash first before I turn up with my dodgy moustache to the school. A couple of things to note. That was a bit more hard work than, can I point? There we go. That was a bit more hard work than I wanted because I should have put the crimp connectors on the other way up so that I didn't have to twist the wires. I didn't have to twist the wires much, but between the tight squeeze between the heat shrink and the grommet and that little bit of twist in the wires, it was a bit more hard work than I would like, but actually it all looks pretty neat now. And like I said, there's not much of a twist in the wires, just enough to make it awkward. A few things have arrived. Nice alley, very cheap alley that needs some cleaning up. Alley filler neck for the coolant hose, the main coolant system. So I'm going to stick that in, if I can. I'm going to stick that in here at the high point. May or may not need a reservoir. You may tell me we do, I don't know. But if I figure if it sits there before it goes off down to the pump, it shouldn't, you may be able to get away without a reservoir. And then I'm actually going to cut this bracket off, I think, and shift the heater reservoir up there out of the way. It'll just be a little bit neater. I might just cable tie that on for now to get things moving, or actually just leave it off for now altogether because we don't need a heater in the summer. So next steps, get another couple of coats of paint on our valance so that we can stick that in, and get our radiator in and finish the plumbing, and get all this wired up, get our high voltage junction box wired up. I still need to 3D print a plate for there so that we can extract the wires for our Wi-Fi thing. Haven't quite worked out how to do that yet. Ideally I need this at home, or I need to do some sketches while I'm here, and I've got plenty to be getting on with while I'm here. Still need to do 12-volt wiring for the motor, not done a thing for that yet. And ideally redo the amp seal, or we may just bodge it to get things moving and then progressively redo it. Obviously still need to do the vacuum plumbing for the vacuum thing, and plumbing the sensor to trigger that. So yeah, still a lot to do. I really hope to be on the road this week. I'm doing a schools talk tomorrow, not about this, about some other stuff, and I really wanted to turn up in my EV, but no such luck. But you know, getting there, and we'd be a lot further on if life didn't keep getting in the way, but it always does. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do like and subscribe. You know, it's nice. It's nice knowing people are watching. Leave us a comment too. Really enjoying the chat in the comments. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and yeah, see you next time.